1916 veteran Nora Connolly O'Brien, daughter of the great hero of Irish socialist republicanism, James Connolly, and herself a veteran of the Republican Congress and Irish Citizen Army, recognised Seamus Costello as the greatest revolutionary leader produced in Ireland since the execution of her father. Nora described Seamus as the leader who would bring about an organisation such as my father wished to bring about. Of all the politicians and political people with whom I have had conversations, and who call themselves followers of Connolly, he was the only one who truly understood what James Connolly meant when he spoke of his vision of the freedom of the Irish people. In him, I had hoped at last, after all these years, a true leader had come who could and would build an organisation such as James Connolly tried to do. High praise indeed from the daughter of the one and only James Connolly. But who was Seamus Costello, the young revolutionary cut down in his prime at just 38 years old by counter-revolutionaries? This video will try to answer that question by taking a look at the life and revolutionary vision of volunteer Seamus Costello. Seamus Costello was born on Old Connacht Avenue in Bray, 1939, and was the eldest of 9 children. At the age of 14 in 1953, Seamus was beginning to become politically aware and was deeply inspired by the Irish Republican Army arms raid on the British Army Officer Training Corps in Felsted, Essex, England. On a trip to Croke Park shortly after, Seamus bought a copy of the United Irishman, the newspaper of the Republican movement of the time, and he devoured it. He consequently decided to join the IRA. At the annual Easter commemoration concert in 1954 in the Gaiety Theatre, Dublin, Seamus approached leading IRA man and famous historian Eamon McThomas and asked to join the IRA. On learning he was just 15, McThomas told him he was too young to join the army and instead to join the Fianna Éireann, the Republican youth movement. Seamus, even then a man of action, had no interest in being involved in a youth movement and so was told to come back the next year. Exactly 1 year later, Seamus again approached McThomas at the Easter concert in the Gaiety, and arrangements were made for him to join the IRA. From that very moment, Seamus Costello played as active a role in the Republican movement, both militarily and politically, as any volunteer in any generation. And this was one of the key defining features of Seamus Costello. This wasn't a narrow-minded militarist, nor a mere political reformist. This was a revolutionary soldier who viewed the class and national struggle in Ireland as one and the same fight. This was a man who believed that Ireland could only be truly free when the working class were in control of the All-Ireland Socialist Republic that James Connolly gave his life for in 1916. In 1956, when the IRA launched a new round in the ongoing war for national liberation, Seamus was to play a full role in Operation Harvest, better known as the Border Campaign. When he wasn't leading a column of guerrillas in the fight against British imperialism in South Derry, he was leading training camps, testing weapons, or selling the United Irishman around his native Bray and Wicklow to build support for the movement. Despite his young age, Seamus led attacks on the British forces, including the burning of Magherafelt Courthouse and the destruction of bridges across South Derry. However, while taking part in a training camp in Glencree, County Wicklow, he was captured by the Free State Special Branch and interned in the Curragh military prison. While this would put an end to the activity of some volunteers, it didn't deter Seamus, who referred to the period of his imprisonment as, quote, my university days. While imprisoned, Seamus threw himself into organising classes, lectures, discussions, and taking a full and active part in the jail's escape committee. It was during his imprisonment in the Curragh that Seamus began to study the international revolutionary struggle in great depth, including the scientific socialist writings of Mao Zedong, and he was particularly impressed with the People's War in Vietnam and how the revolutionary movement there, against enormous odds, was marching steadily to victory over US imperialism, demonstrating imperialism to be nothing more than a paper tiger. This anti-imperialist internationalism would remain a key tenet of Costello's socialist republicanism, much as it was Connolly's, for the rest of his life. In the aftermath of the border campaign, Seamus was one of the first Republicans to see that the strategy of the Republican movement would have to change if it was to be successful in driving British imperialism out. Seamus asserted that the border campaign had failed not because it lacked the popular support of the people, but because it lacked the popular involvement and mobilisation of the people. Far from walking away from the movement, Seamus threw himself into reorganising the revolution and advocated that the movement must return to the socialist republican teachings of Connolly and must become active on the issues directly affecting the working class in their everyday lives as well as on the national question. And like Connolly, Seamus believed that revolutionary armed force should be utilised to fight both the class and the national struggle. This wasn't just talk for Seamus Costello. He believed in leading by example and threw himself into community organising, first in Bray and then across County Wicklow. Seamus encouraged the collective organising of working class people on issues that faced them, whether it was the ground rents, housing issues, water issues, workers' rights, small farmers' struggles, or the broader fight against imperialism. In building up Sinn Féin in Wicklow in the early 1960s, Seamus also built up people's organisations alongside this, and before long had built up a revolutionary people's movement in Wicklow that was the example to the rest of the country. Seamus was by now the chairperson of the Bray Congress of Trade Unions, head of the Bray Tenants Association, and the leading figure in Wicklow Sinn Féin. He made close links with mine workers who were being exploited and with the small farmers being persecuted by the big ranchers, while at the same time moving up the ranks of the IRA and eventually being elected onto the Army Council. Seamus saw no difference between organising the next round of the armed fight against imperialism or the day-to-day organising of the working class on the street. In fact, he saw them as one and the same, echoing James Connolly's belief that the cause of Labour is the cause of Ireland, the cause of Ireland is the cause of Labour. Always and everywhere, in every venue he could, Seamus Costello advocated the All-Ireland Socialist Republic. As a revolutionary socialist, Seamus had a keen interest in the international struggle. In the early 1960s, Seamus saw that Moscow was transforming into a bastion of counter-revolution, no longer willing to support the people's national liberation struggles. Based on his study of Mao and the Chinese Revolution, alongside Ho Chi Minh and Vietnam while imprisoned in the Kura, Seamus in 1964 approached the Chinese embassy in Paris and later London with a request for arms and funding for the IRA. While the outcome of these discussions is not known for sure, what can be said from this event is that Seamus was developing as a revolutionary, and it suggests that he recognised the People's Republic of China as the most advanced revolutionary camp at that time, and was keen to ally the Irish revolutionary movement with it. By 1966, Seamus was a leading figure on the IRA Army Council, and immensely popular with volunteers across the country who were keen to get involved in the militant socialist republicanism he advocated. The respect with which he was held within the movement was demonstrated publicly when he was chosen to deliver the main oration at the annual Wolftown commemoration in Bodenstown, County Kildare. This event was perhaps the most important event in the IRA calendar, attracting thousands of volunteers and supporters from across the country who would come to hear the policy decisions set out by the Army Council. In 1966, Seamus delivered one of the most important speeches in the history of the IRA. In it, he outlined how the Republican movement would officially embrace the socialist republicanism of James Connolly, and he gave an outline of how IRA volunteers could become revolutionary political organisers. He declared, "We Republicans must not be content to criticise those who misgovern both parts of our country. If we are to regard ourselves as true followers of Tone, we must provide the Irish people with an alternative. It must be a realistic and practical alternative. Our target must be the achievement of the ideals set out in the Proclamation of 1916. The right of the people of Ireland to the ownership of Ireland, religious and civil liberty, equal rights and equal opportunities for all our citizens. This in effect means that we must aim for the ownership of our resources by the people, so that these resources will be developed in the best interests of the people as a whole." Some of you may feel that these aims are impossible to achieve until such time as we have an independent All-Ireland government. It is certainly true that some of these aims will not reach fruition until such time as we have an All-Ireland Parliament. However, in the meantime, you as Republicans have an extremely important part to play in the furtherance of this policy. It is your duty to spearhead the organisation of a virile cooperative movement among the farming community. It is also your duty to use your influence as trade unionists to organise a militant trade union movement with a national consciousness. In short, it is your duty to become active, hard-working members of each and every organisation that is working for the welfare of all the people and towards the reunification of the country. You should use every possible opportunity to acquaint the people with our policies on land, industry and finance. We believe that there should be a limit to the amount of land owned by any single individual. We also believe that the large estates of absentee landlords should be acquired by compulsory acquisition and worked on a cooperative basis with the financial and technical assistance of the state. In the field of industry, our policy is to nationalise the key industries with the eventual aim of cooperative ownership by the workers. The capital necessary to carry out this programme can be made available without recourse to extensive taxation by the nationalisation of all banks, insurance, loan and investment companies, whose present policy is the reinvestment of our hard-earned money in foreign fields. This, in short, is our policy. This is our definition of freedom. It was Tone's definition, Lawler's definition, Mitchell's definition, and the stated aim of Pearse and Connolly. We can expect the same reaction to the implementation of these aims from the forces of exploitation, whether native or foreign sponsored, as the originators received in 1798, 1848, 1867 and 1916. Therefore, to imagine that we can establish a republic solely by constitutional means is utter folly. The lesson of history shows that in the final analysis, the robber baron must be disestablished by the same methods that he used to enrich himself and retain his ill-gotten gains, namely force of arms. To this end, we must organise, train and maintain a disciplined armed force which will always be available to strike at the opportune moment. What Seamus achieved with this oration was no mean feat. He played a major role in moving the mainstream Republican movement sharply to the left, something that had been tried and failed by Peadar O'Donnell and Frank Ryan a generation earlier. Not since Connolly had any Republican had such success in fusing the class and national struggle into the same fight. The Bodenstown oration signified a drastic policy change for the IRA, which led to a burst of energy. IRA volunteers across the country were now ordered to follow Seamus's example and to involve themselves in revolutionary community politics. The IRA now organised sit-ins in support of tenants, fish-ins against imperialist ownership of natural resources, took military action in support of workers, and in Dublin, Dunleary and Bray, directly under the leadership of Seamus Costello, revolutionary housing action committees were established to organise homeless families into direct conflict with the state to demand the provision of housing. Following Bodenstown, everywhere there was an issue that the working class were organising around, the IRA would be there. Seamus was leading the way and had successfully brought the movement back to James Connolly's path. In 1967, as a result of his revolutionary community activism, Seamus Costello was elected as a representative of Sinn Féin to the Wicklow County Council, topping the poll in Bray and joining the Bray Urban District Council. Seamus had built a revolutionary base and was demonstrating the working class support for socialist republicanism. Despite being on the Bray Council, Seamus continued to play a full role in the underground revolutionary movement and remained a member of the IRA Army Council. Around the same time, Seamus was also a leading figure in organising the nationalist community in the occupied 6 counties into the Civil Rights Association to fight the worst extremes of Britain's colonial state in Ireland. And when the community was attacked in August 1969, Seamus was part of the plans to get weapons sent to IRA units in the 6 counties, only for the then IRA leadership not to send them on. When the 1969 split in the Republican movement came, Seamus became a member of the Stickies, those who referred to themselves as the official IRA and official Sinn Féin. He was appointed to the officials' Army Council and became Director of Operations, overseeing the actions of the official IRA in combat against the British military on the streets of occupied Ireland from 1969 to 1972. During this time, the Stickies began to walk the road of reformism, first by recognising the Free State, and then by attempting to wind down the armed struggle. While Seamus supported the contesting of elections and the move by the officials to drop abstentionism, he was deeply opposed to reformism or an end to the armed struggle, and openly opposed the Stickies' leadership on this question, pushing always for the class and the national struggle to be understood as the same fight. As a result of this militancy, Seamus was suspended from the official IRA and official Sinn Féin. In 1974, Seamus and other socialist Republicans across Ireland, betrayed by the sellout of the Stickies and believing that there must be a vehicle fighting for both social and national liberation, gathered at the Lucan Spa Hotel in Dublin and established first the Irish Republican Socialist Party as a revolutionary socialist party committed to the politics of James Connolly, and later that same day the Irish National Liberation Army, to pursue the war for national liberation and the class struggle by revolutionary force of arms. In establishing the IRSP and the INLA, Seamus was attempting to give the Irish working class their revolutionary party and their People's Army. He became the first chairperson of the IRSP and the first chief of staff of the INLA. With the party and the army established, Seamus would dedicate the rest of his life to establishing the third weapon of the revolution, the United Front, or as he phrased it, the anti-imperialist Broad Front. The establishment of the IRSP and INLA under the leadership of Seamus Costello was a high point for socialist republicanism in Ireland. The revolutionary politics espoused by the organisation were viewed as a great threat to the partitionist states in Ireland, but also by the increasingly reactionary Stickies, who were losing hundreds of members to the new Irish Republican Socialist movement. The Free State decided to act and attempted to break the IRSM by framing it for the Sallins train robbery, which had in fact been carried out by the Provisionals. The Garda Special Branch used the opportunity to round up and torture leading members of the IRSM, with its heavy gang beating false forced confessions from many in what's still considered to be one of the greatest miscarriages of justice of the Free State. The Stickies too, for counter-revolutionary motives, decided to launch a bloody attack on the new movement in Belfast in an attempt to wipe them out at birth. The details of this painful feud are too long to go into here, but under Seamus's leadership, the IRSM managed to pull through it. However, the fact that the IRSP and INLA survived the feud led counter-revolutionaries to sign Seamus's own personal death warrant. Despite the death threat that hung over his head, Seamus continued his revolutionary organising with the very same fervour as before. The IRSP began to become a powerful force in socialist politics in Ireland, and the INLA, through many daring actions, won itself a position in the Republican movement. Seamus explained the twin class and national approach of the movement, stating that "We are a revolutionary socialist party and our objective is to create a revolutionary socialist state in Ireland. Part of the struggle for a socialist state entailed resolving the national liberation struggle and ending British imperialist intervention, whether military intervention, political intervention, or control of aspects of the economy. This is the basic position of the party." He also stated that "We Republicans must set our faces steadfastly on the road which leads to freedom. Freedom to us means, among other things, the evacuation of British troops from our country. We will not compromise on this question. No foreign troops, under no matter what flag, will ever garrison Ireland in peace." This was the modern conception of James Connolly's socialist republicanism summed up. In 1975, at the IRSP's first Bodenstown commemoration, Seamus again rose to set out the policy of the movement. He stated, "The most important and immediate task now confronting us is the creation of a broad front in the struggle for national liberation. We are currently seeking to have discussions with the leadership of all other anti-imperialist organisations towards this end. We seek the creation of a broad front against imperialism because we believe unity is essential if we are to succeed. An anti-imperialist broad front, such as the one Connolly led into the GPO in 1916, would be the main tactical aim of the IRSM. Seamus entered into discussions with other revolutionary groups, including the Provisional IRA, the Red Republican Party, the Communist Party of Ireland, the Irish Sovereignty Movement, and others. The purpose of the Broad Front was to unite revolutionaries and progressives under socialist republican leadership to mobilise the masses to wage the war for national liberation and the fight for socialism. Seamus stated that, "We have held a series of discussions with members of all republican and socialist organisations at either rank and file or national leadership level. At rank and file level in all organisations, we found an almost unanimous desire for unity in the struggle against imperialism and an ever-increasing awareness of the power of the reactionary forces ranged against us. Unfortunately, the widespread desire for unity in the struggle which exists at rank and file level is not reflected in the attitudes of the leadership of some of the organisations involved. At the very point in the struggle when unified action is absolutely essential on all fronts, we found leaders more concerned with maintaining their own positions of influence or in pursuing faction fighting and vendettas against former comrades. It was not for want of Seamus trying that the Broad Front failed in his lifetime. The Communist Party of Ireland refused to back the revolutionary armed struggle, and it was felt that an alliance of the IRSM and the Provisionals would not be significantly broad enough. Despite this, it's believed that in his last hours on the 5th of October 1977, Seamus was continuing to work towards the Broad Front and had held meetings that very day. That afternoon, he was sitting in his car just off the North Strand Road in Dublin, waiting for a contact in the Seamen's Union with whom he was organising a gun shipment for the revolution, when a former comrade, Jim Flynn of the official IRA, approached his car, drew a gun, and shot Seamus Costello dead at point-blank range, in what can only be described as a counter-revolutionary assassination. Ireland's greatest hope since James Connolly lay dead, murdered in cold blood by those who followed the path of revisionism all the way to its tragic conclusion in reactionary, counter-revolutionary violence. That Seamus Costello's last act in this world was organising an arms shipment to serve the struggle for national liberation and socialist revolution through his trade union contacts demonstrates that he was truly a leader cut from the same cloth as James Connolly himself. And though Seamus, like Connolly, was robbed from us, he's left clear examples and teachings for the revolutionaries of today. Thanks to Seamus, we can understand that the class and national struggle in Ireland are the same fight and that the revolution must be under the leadership of the working class. Thanks to Seamus, we can understand that the revolution needs its party, its people's army and its broad united front in order to be successful. Thanks to Seamus, we can understand that every socialist republican must be a revolutionary in the true sense of the word. Not a militarist, but actively involved in the community, providing leadership on the issues that matter for the working class. And thanks to Seamus, we can understand that the only solution to the ongoing class and national struggle in Ireland is the All-Ireland Socialist Republic, which must be fought for day in, day out. On review of his life and revolutionary vision, there can be no doubt that volunteer Seamus Costello was the single greatest revolutionary leader in Ireland since James Connolly himself. It's no wonder why the forces of counter-revolution felt they had to kill him. No wonder at all. Right, thanks very much for watching this video. Hopefully you found it useful in one way or another. Thanks especially to the supporters on Patreon who continue to make each of these videos possible with their generous donations. Thank you Blue Collar Red, Owen Moynihan, Julia Affentranger, BJB7, Gatto Ansok, Vangelo, Pretentious Joke Name, Jolie, Ugopnik, Grimwater, Ryan Hodgson, Soup, Michaela Schmid, Christian Napales, Alfonso Dingo Torres, Rotgardists, Zakassi, Anglo-Irish Bolshevik, Thomas Rawson Wood, Bobby Block, Jason Schmidt, Mitch Schiller, Saoirse Ní Bhealán, Roja, MLM in Practice, Eric Lindahl, Robert Jarzak, Anastasia, Wonderbad, JT Chapman, Joseph Shepard, Comrade Amara, Wealth for the 99%, Peter Kraus, Hagen Mitchells, Carlos De Luna, 23 Skidoo, John Purser, Rodrigo Pichardo, Chairman Bruh, Facha Fiuca, Tiers Cadigan, Brian Lounge, Sexy Socialists, Caturist Maoists, Noel Hemdahl, Richard Scott Wigton, Connor L, Chairman Eris, and Jason Pierce. Cheers everyone, agus slán go fóill.